robot retail, Milkman Model, and Black-owned support. Today, we hunt the top 20 trends of 2021, brought to you by Trend Hunter. First off, we have Gen Z creative. Though everyone has had to reset their lives to some degree this year, Gen Z, right on the brink of adulthood, entered this volatility at a pivotal time in their lives. As a result, they're rethinking whether the traditional trajectory of adulthood, including post-secondary schooling, a traditional office job, and a life of general upward mobility, is even for them. Instead, they're seeking ways to build up more creative skills, photography, creative writing, to set themselves up for an adult life of joy and fulfillment. Next, we get to modern beekeeping. Although modern beekeeping may seem hyper-specific, it's a great example of how this past year has seen the rise of the hobbyist. Consumers engaging in often bucolic interests to help them unplug and unwind in the face of crisis. Within this, we have subtrends of cottagecore, increased home cooking, at-home sewing, but beekeeping is an interesting example. It combines this need for relaxation with eco-consciousness, as it's fairly common knowledge that the health of bees is conducive to the health of the environment. Next is model-free runway. Fashion brands are adapting to the inability to use models and hold traditional runway shows in ways that still showcase the artistic core of the industry. There have been many different approaches to this. Virtual avatars, marionette runway shows, all of which are bringing even more creativity and adaptability to an industry already dependent on both. Hopefully, this signifies a shift in the industry away from exclusivity and trend reliance and toward true creativity. Next, we have eSports nutrition. In the midst of quarantine, we see more and more people gaming. This, combined with the pause in athletic leagues, is creating openness to the world of eSports. Esports players are now increasingly seen as professional athletes, with sponsorships and products geared toward this set similar to what we see in the world of athletics. Here, we see food products that are specifically targeted toward these communities. Up next, we have dark stores. Essentially miniature warehouse-adjacent spaces, dark stores have been around for years, as spaces whose sole purpose is to pack online orders for pickup or delivery. Now, dark stores are becoming much more important in the midst of quarantine as low-impact alternatives to the traditional brick-and-mortar store. Undoubtedly, retail is an industry where much change is needed to readjust to this new normal, and dark stores are a small example of that change. Next up is smart testing. Born out of the idea that rapid testing is necessary in certain spaces, such as airports or hospitals, tech brands are integrating this level of convenience and efficiency in day-to-day spaces. These testing kiosks take a vending machine approach to COVID testing that will focus on convenience and accessibility, which of course will be necessary in the new normal. Following this, we have skin hunger. The pandemic introduced many large and small-scale tensions, from the dangers of wealth disparity to the inconvenience of working from home. One of the most widespread concerns has been the emotional and mental strain of isolation. In the midst of social distancing, many are simply missing human contact, actual physical touch. As a result, art, clothing, home design are all spaces where products dedicated to mimicking that physical touch can be seen. Now we get to Milkman Model. Brands are launching circular delivery systems that take inspiration from the traditional Milkman model in an effort to save materials and reduce waste. These deliveries include hygienic products, food, alcohol. Consumers have become more informed about the dangers of single-use plastic as it relates to the environment. However, this past year also saw an increase in single-use products as they were viewed as more hygienic. This has prompted a renewed zero-waste movement in the new normal. Up next, we have Millennial Move. Up until this point, millennials were proven to desire a life in a metropolitan city, working the sort of cool job that's fulfilling yet still signals their success to the rest of the world. However, in light of the recent pandemic and political tensions causing them to re-inspect the systems that grant that traditional success, millennials are readjusting their expectations. This generation is now more eager than expected to migrate away from metropolitan cities and opt for more relaxing adult lives. Some would say more traditional, almost normal adulthood, not what we expect from the millennial generation. Of course, this generation may retain its love of freedom and desire to participate in the gig economy, which takes us to our next trend of home professional. Home professional sees a shift in the fashion industry to accommodate working from home regulations, Work leisure is the new athleisure. On a greater scale, of course, it signifies a future-facing shift wherein working from home is the rule, not the exception. Our next trend shows a move away from the single-use movement, but with bigger ticket items than what we see in Milkman Model: biodegradable furnishing. The idea of eco-conscious furniture sets a new precedent for what it means to integrate your principles into your everyday life. Additionally, this speaks to the desire to integrate elements of nature into interior design. If people are spending more time at home, they might as well make it ultra relaxing. Another piece that touches on the redefinition of what it means to age is isolated senior. So far, we've explored how millennials and Gen Z are dismantling generational stereotypes, but boomers are doing the same. The aging demographic has increased their social media use in 2020 more than any other generation as a way to cope with social distancing. So moving forward, we see many services dedicated to connecting boomers with their loved ones or even helping them make new connections. Up next, we have post-hospitality. The hospitality and tourism industry is, of course, one that will need to see lots of change in the new normal. The idea of travel will undoubtedly look different, and technology will play a big role. We see technology dedicated to increase sanitation, but also travel experiences enabled virtually, or even added engagements to incentivize consumers to take the risk and take that trip. Continuing on with that idea of the role of tech, we have robot retail. The pandemic has accelerated the use of robots in retail already. It has its implications in terms of cost savings, in terms of convenience, and the use of robots decreases the need for face-to-face interaction. This will continue into the new normal, focusing on both the health of consumers and the health of employees. The use of robots in the retail space will increase. Next, we have non-binary tech. This trend sees brands ranging from the video game industry to smartphone developers, including non-binary characters. Standards of diversity and inclusion have elevated this year, and representation of marginalized groups is simply an expectation. This focus on diversity and inclusion, as well as equity, continues with Black-owned support. The resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement this past year has awakened the consumer desire to live their principles in every aspect of their lives. This includes where they spend their money, services curating lists of Black-owned businesses for consumers to support, enabling them to take their support of marginalized communities beyond that black square on Instagram.
P2P Support highlights peer-to-peer support groups that are acting as lifelines for communities in crisis. Increasing anxiety caused by disruptions during this time are, of course, having a negative impact on the mental health of many individuals. Brands are addressing this by facilitating peer-to-peer support via technology. Services including senior food delivery initiatives, app-based support groups, and crowdsourced pandemic tools can be observed.
Next up, we have distance design. This trend sees physical distancing practices encouraged through intelligent design in public settings. Many examples of this were rolled out in 2020, but this will continue into 2021. Spaces that force mindfulness encourage safety in a very simple way. Now we get to remote engagements. Working from home is only successfully achieved with the right technology, frequent check-ins, and other granular concerns, but how can an employer retain and maybe even improve on corporate culture from home? We see examples that are not just about the functionality of communicating virtually, but that encourage the kind of bonding that often happens when a team is in office together 5 days a week. From virtual pizza parties to team-building video games, these not just ensure that the workplace is still efficient, but still a fun place to be. Now we get to our final of our top 20 insights, environmental community. Environmental community is all about sustainable community concepts to focus on social and ecological advancement. The entire functionality of a city, its architecture, its planning, is to keep people moving efficiently. Moving forward, we see social and environmental factors taken into account as well. We'll see clean energy community concepts, multi-generational subscription housing, and more. Thank you for watching our top 20 trends of 2021. If you want more inspiration, innovation, and insights, visit trendhunter.com/trendreports and download our free trend report.